Hey guys, Perry here to do an album review. Today I'm here to tell you all about Winterfylleth and their latest album, The Reckoning Dawn, out May 8th on Candlelight. This album has 11 tracks, 1 hour and 16 minutes, and this is the band's 7th full-length studio album. This is a black metal album with a lot of substance to it. You feel some folk elements, not too many, but there's some sprinkles of some folk elements, specifically with the acoustic guitars. They almost drive into that more traditional Spanish guitar sound, so it has a little bit of that kind of sound. So if you could consider that folk, I would really go with that. And then it has a lot of symphonic elements throughout the album. Now, the symphonic elements do not push this album into the symphonic black metal category. To me, the symphonic elements on the record are there to create atmosphere. So if anything, it pushes this album into a more of an atmospheric black metal genre kind of record. The overall structure of the album is very linear in its approach. There's only really one dip, or two dips if you will, and that is the middle track on the album, Betwixt Two Crowns, is an acoustic interlude that almost feels like it's coming out of nowhere. But when you look at the overall structure of the record, it makes sense. The album offers you some acoustic elements leading up to this interlude, so this interlude is not coming completely out of nowhere, but it divides the album into two. There's definitely what happens before the interlude and then what happens after the interlude. There really is a build-up of momentum. There is a build-up of melodic elements that lead up to that interlude, and then after that you see a cascading of those same elements and an insertion of other elements that define the sound for the second half of the record. This is also a record that's being released with two different versions. The original release has 8 tracks, and then there's a bonus CD release with 3 extra bonus tracks. One of those bonus tracks is a cover of Enslaved's Wooden, and the other one is In Darkness Begotten, which is the last track, and that is a synthesizer instrumental track that's really atmospheric. I mean, this track is the definition of atmospheric, and I love that it's the closing. So in my opinion, if you were between picking one or the other, I would go with the bonus CD because I feel like the album is more complete. The original release feels like there's a couple of pages ripped at the end of the book and the story is not fulfilled. You don't have an ending to it per se. I feel with the bonus CD release, the album is complete, the story is complete. And then when you look at that version and you see the dip in the middle of the record, because like I said, the album feels very linear with that exception of that interlude in the middle. So when you have that dip there, it allows the album to reset. So you have two records. You have the first part of the record and you have the second part of the record. And then closing with an atmospheric synthesizer track, it's the icing on the cake. To me, it's the perfect closing song because it kind of brings in all the atmospheric elements that you were getting throughout the record, that you were getting on every single song. All of them combine forces in this final track, and it's the curtain call of the record. So I feel like that version of the album is definitely a bigger version of the album. It's a more complete version of the album, if you will. This album also has great guitars. You cannot walk away from this record without talking about the guitar sound. I already mentioned acoustic. That's one of the elements that they throw at the listener in this record, and I really like the fact that they sprinkled acoustic elements throughout the album. They did a magnificent job knowing when to use them in a way that creates a even darker and more somber atmosphere on an individual track, and instead of using a symphonic element, they added acoustic in order to throw a different element that does almost the same thing as far as atmosphere is concerned on this record. But the overall guitar sound is very raw, is very driven, and it has the ability at times to sound like there's over layers of guitars on top of the other to create this bigger and this larger sound on certain tracks of this album. So I really feel that the overall guitar work on this album is magnificent. It definitely needs to be mentioned. Great melodies, a great driving force, a really raw strength to the way the guitars sound. The guitars are definitely one of the main elements of this album and one of the things that really pushes the record forward. I mentioned already symphonic elements, so I have to talk about keyboards because I really feel the work on the keyboard side is really important. And it's important because it wasn't overdone. They didn't push this album into the symphonic arena, but they used symphonic elements in order to create a much darker atmosphere to the way the songs sound. That to me, it was the right approach. For an album that has this feel, that has this structure, that has this kind of dynamic fluidity, you kind of want to pull the pendulum towards that side and not really move into the symphonic side of things. They didn't fall in love with the keyboards. They used them throughout the record, but they knew exactly when to use them, when to drop them, when was the right time, how much to use of them, and how much strength they needed from the keyboards on every single track. So to me, the The intelligent way in which they approach the keyboards is the winning formula for this record. It's not an album that overdoes it and then becomes almost redundant with every single track almost sounding exactly the same, because they have these over-the-top keyboards that just overshine and they just crowd the sound on the tracks. That's not the case with this album. They're really more of an underlaying, an undercarriage, if you will, to the way the songs are structured, to the way the songs are composed. The vocals on the record are also very important. They're really one of the driving elements, but more important, they really capture the energy more so than the emotion. I feel like they capture the energy of the songs and then they relay that energy to the listener. Really raw, really strong, really driving, really pungent. They have such a strength, they have such a stronghold on every single song, the way they dominate the track, the way they try to control the track. The songs sometimes feel like a wild stallion, and the vocals come in and they pull the reins on it. They try to dominate it, they try to control it, keep it in line, keep it focused. So I really love the approach from the vocals, and it's one of the key elements that, in my opinion, never really fluctuates too much throughout the record. It really stays linear, it stays concise on every single song of this album. There are some slight nuances, there are some slight changes, but not enough to create this over dramatic change or this really drastic change. It's more of a nuance, it's more of a feel, and I like that aspect because it almost reignites the song when it happens. It almost is the spark plug that resets that song as far as the listener is concerned. This is a great overall this is a great album. I really enjoy listening to this record. The Reckoning Dawn is a powerful black metal album that shows that you can incorporate other elements, sprinkles, if you will, of other elements, and not compromise the overall sound, the overall feel of the record, and still have that raw, natural black metal sound to your album. As far as songs are concerned, I want to start off with Absolved and Fire. It starts off very stripped down. It starts off with this acoustic orchestral instrumental piece that's really long. It goes on for over a minute, and I really appreciate that because it was a very nice long intro to this song. It kind of dulled your emotions as you get into the track. The song gains intensity, and when it gains intensity, it also gains darkness. But one of the key elements of this song is that melody that you had at the beginning with the acoustic and the orchestration piece. That melody stays throughout the track. Sometimes more in the forefront, sometimes it drops a little bit more, but it stayed there. It just became more intensive. It became more raw. It became stronger, it became bigger, and it became even faster. So I like the fact that they didn't just use an instrumental piece to start off the track and then completely abandon it and went in a different direction. No, they used that same melody, they just turned it to 11. That's pretty much how this song goes. The waves in the guitars is really important in this track. I really feel like this is one of the songs where you can really feel the guitars coming on top of each other to create this really raw sound and to create this huge volume that the overall song really has all the way through. At the midpoint, the song changes yet again. This is a song that changes throughout. You have that intro, then it becomes more intense, then it changes the dynamics a little bit between the verses and the chorus, and then you have at the midway point another change. The song becomes almost more of a song that is driven by the forces of the drums and the guitars in parallel, but it changes the dynamic. At that point, it doesn't almost feel like a black metal track anymore. It becomes a lot more, it becomes faster, it becomes stronger, it becomes more assertive. Not as much hiding in the shadows as it was up until that point. At that point, you really feel like you know who you are and you're not afraid of showing it. So the song becomes it becomes another character, if you will. Staying with the same atmosphere, it doesn't really change the overall atmosphere that the track has, but it definitely changes the dynamics of the song, and it definitely changes the overall sound and drive that this track has. And then it goes back again to how it started. It goes back again to the more dark and melodic approach. So it's a very complex and dynamic song. It's a song that takes you on a journey and that shows you different sides of the band, and that shows you how they can construct songs with different elements, bind them all together to create a very dynamic track. Next, Greatness Undone, a really driven black metal song that alternates that sound with a more symphonic, atmospheric melody. That is really the driving force behind this track. The song is very dynamic, but it really depends on the coexistence of these two elements, the black metal sound and the symphonic elements. There's a stripped down middle bridge that brings a lot of melancholy to the track. So in this song, having a similar structure to the previous track, they use different elements within it, so they create a song that sounds completely different. And this one in the middle bridge, the mood changes, the atmosphere changes, because the elements of the sound change. So it becomes almost melancholic. It goes from being a very dark black metal track to being almost just a pure melancholic track with that middle bridge. Once that middle bridge starts to build up, you feel that melancholy is still present, but it starts to dissipate, it starts to corrode and to be replaced with darkness. Once it gets fully replaced with darkness, the song goes back in full circle to how it started. It really closes off in the same way it starts. It's a song that goes 100% full circle. But I really like that transition. I like the darkness at the beginning, the drop in the middle to that melancholic bridge, and then that melancholy starts to build up first with melody and then with darkness, until you feel like that whole melancholic is stripped away completely, replaced with darkness, and now the song is back where it started. I love this transformation. It's really a metamorphosis. You can really feel the song going through different aspects, to different changes, and really shedding its skin, specifically in that second half of the track. Last but not least, Yielding the March Law, a powerful, fast-moving track. Great guitar riff on this song. I absolutely love the guitar riff on this song. The melody that it enters and it exits of the song with so much ease. The melody just weaves itself in and out as the song progresses. I love that. The vocals are so powerful. They really are the perfect partner to the overall sound that this song has. They really know how to deliver the track, how to deliver the lyrics, and how not to take anything away from the sound that's behind it. They are there, holding hands all the way through, and one is complementing the other. The song, like I said, moves in waves, and it really comes and goes with different components taking different angles. So I really like the overall feel that this song has, because you have this very dynamic approach as the song it almost evolves as it's moving along. It's just constantly changing, giving you new ideas, giving you new looks, giving you new sounds. At the midway point in this song, they like to do this a lot throughout this record, which is throw these changes, these dynamic changes at the midway point of the songs, and then go in a completely different direction. And this one, they get a little bit of a humming vocal bridge in the middle that really changes the sound that the track has. And then I like how it continues, because they kept that humming there in the background, but that humming slowly dissipates away as the song progresses. This song has a really nice dark melodic touch to it, and to me that humming there added a lot of darkness to the track. It made the track even darker than what it was up until that point. But it's a song that really blends darkness with melody, and you feel that all the way through. Like I said, it's this weaving of melody in and out. So when the melody drops out, the darkness comes in. When the melody comes back out, the darkness drops out. So these two elements really coexist throughout this track, all the way from the beginning to the end. But that piece of humming there, a change to the vocal approach. The vocals around it are still the same, but just by adding that humming there, really changes the dynamic of the track. It just becomes such a much darker song. It feels really somber as it's moving along, almost dragging itself through. Alright guys, this is it. This is Winterfylleth with Reckoning Dawn, once again out May 8th on Candlelight. Let me know your thoughts on the band, on the singles. Use the comment section below. I'll be reading those and getting back to you. Take care, guys.